Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm Peter Larson. I've spent my whole life in the state of Oregon. I have a bachelor's degree from Oregon State University in sociology. I have a master's of arts in teaching from Western Oregon University. I was a high school teacher in a small logging community for a while, teaching social studies. And now I'm out here in Eastern Oregon. I work at Eastern Oregon University as an admissions counselor. My wife is a pharmacist, also a graduate of Oregon State. We have two kids, and we're just living life out here in La Grande.
Why do you want to be our district's congressperson?
Yes. So, in looking at Congressional District 2, it is very broad. It is very varied from downtown Medford to the scene you see behind me out in what feels like a very rural part of America to Joseph, Oregon. And why I want to represent that in Congress is that I don't feel we've had accurate representation. And whether or not it's accurate, it certainly has not been listened to. So, as we might discuss more as we go, um, perhaps one of the biggest impetus of this is that our current representative does not come out amongst us. He does not come out and hold town halls. He does not come out and listen to his constituents. And while maybe I'm deviating somewhat from the question, that was that's kind of a big deal to me. I don't care if they're Democrat, Republican, progressive, libertarian, whoever. If they're representing us, they should be listening to us.
Right. Well, if I'm being perfectly honest, that's my biggest sticking point with Cliff Bentz as well. And so to hear you say that is it's really gratifying, and I'm really glad to hear it. So, in what ways do you believe the Republican-led federal government has effectively served the American people over the last year, 14 months or so?
Sure. Yeah. Great question. So I'll take it in two tracks. The first is there have been some bipartisan congressional legislation that has passed that has benefited us. So the Rural Schools Act, actually started by one of our senators, Ron Wyden, and along with some others, of course, bipartisanship co-sponsors, was passed. There's been some other smaller bills affecting veterans that have passed, those sorts of areas.
Yeah, yeah. And I agree that, it seems like those small bipartisan victories are actually a big deal in this climate, and the fact that they get no lip service, no advertising, nobody's pointing out that, in certain critical places, the parties
Yeah.
are coming together, they're crossing the aisle. Um, so how do you propose to connect with independent voters like me, or more left-leaning voters?
Yes. So one of them, which we kind of discussed, the idea of being out amongst the people. It this seems kind of small in the grand scope of things, but one of my first things would be to hold a town hall in every county that Congressional District 2 encompasses. Deschutes is a little weird because it divides Deschutes, but I would find a city in there. We'll go somewhere
Right.
small. That's fine.
Yeah.
But having, even if it's just an hour long, maybe that's all we could do. Maybe we could do longer, but
Right.
having a town hall in each of those counties, I think is really important. And I've told folks that, yes, if I were nominated and then elected to Congress, of course I'd be back there voting. But I think I'd rather spend more time out here in Oregon listening to people. Um,
Right.
I see Ron Wyden and Jeff Merkley going across the entire state, obviously because there are senators, but they go to lots of places that
Yeah.
are even seemingly out of the way, and listening to folks. And I would totally do that. Let's go down to Burns. Let's go down to Lakeview. Let's get
Right.
out to wherever. Pine
Jordan
Rock,
Valley. Jordan
Jordan
Valley.
Valley. Let's go to
Yeah.
Jordan Valley.
Let's
Half
go
the
to
way, Oregon.
Denio Junction, man. I'm ready. I love that place. It's wild. No, but to your point, like, putting your feet to the ground, actually getting across the state. I, the last time I believe Bentz gave a in-person town hall. I actually drove 7 hours from Medford to Boardman to see him speak. And unfortunately, I wasn't called on to have my question answered, but you know, I gotta say it was disappointing, but it was very polite. You know, there was no screaming or shouting at him. And ever since then, he's pointed at Indivisible and other groups as being disruptive or whatever. And I feel like he's hiding from that. But it's also because he is hiding from that, he's not doing his constituent services. You know, I mean, things like fielding calls from people that need the direct help of their congressperson. So
Absolutely.
let's move on to perhaps the more spicier questions that I have on the list here. Under what circumstances would you accept corporate or PAC money?
Yes. Um, First, as somebody who has not received any of that, uh, that's a great thought exercise for myself personally, because
Not a
you
problem
know,
so far.
yeah, but dark money and large packs and large donors are absolutely a real thing, by far. I mean, after Citizens United ruling by the Supreme Court, uh, I would really honestly I would really study each and every one that would be offered to me. I guess it's possible that it's donated to me and it's just kind of automatic, based on donations. But even then, it could be reversed. So if
Right,
it's not something I believe in, or it's a person or a place that seems, uh, I say weird or strange, but it seems opaque, right?
right.
There's no clear lineage. Then yeah, that is something I would reject. I mean,
Yeah,
I've told people around me from day one, hey, if I were to get nominated and elected and then primary to lose, I don't care. I'll go back to LeGrand. That's
yeah,
totally fine, and that's
yeah,
because I don't have enough money to do whatever. Then that's okay. I think there's a place for interests, businesses to donate some. I mean, they're also represented, uh, but large sums that are just dwarfing everything else that are
right.
from across the country doesn't really speak to me or appeal to me uh, in this area.
Well, and I like that you said the word lineage because that's what PACs are all about. You don't know where the money is coming from. You don't know who is trying to influence things by using you as a pawn, and I respect that take. To study things case by case. I think that's reasonable. I mean, because what it denotes anyway is that you are being conscious about it. You're not just taking it in. Whereas I think a lot of other Congress people are probably just, hey, wherever the money comes from, get it in because we got to fundraise for 2 years from now, you know.
And that's how they vote.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. So, let me ask you a question regarding foreign policy. This one is, feel free to reject the premise of it, break it down however you want, but would you make your support for foreign aid in its different kind of iterations contingent on that given nation's adherence to human rights or international law?
Uh, I would say yes with caveats. So I guess I'm
Right.
rejecting the premise, but not really, because that is a great question,
Sure.
and it is something. If we're giving, whether it's military aid or whether it's financial aid, um, in some cases, of course, there it could be no strings attached if we're trying to feed people, but at the same time, if we're trying to feed a nation or to help a group of people and their country is attacking others, then that doesn't really seem to jive together. So I do think that there is absolutely room for that. Of course, you get into issues of like monitoring and how to check, but also that's a little bit maybe beyond the scope of a congressional representative. But I would hope that and
Maybe.
would love to see those types of guardrails, those safeguards
Right.
within that financial aid, or foreign aid, whatever that
Right.
that case might be there.
You would look for accountability, transparency in those things. It wouldn't just be like shoving a pile of cash across the table.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I believe I don't want to get the country wrong, but I believe it's El Salvador or is
Hmm.
it Honduras? But they've had a lot of issues with gangs, and so
Right,
over the last several years, their very young president has done a lot of things that are, yes, getting rid of gangs, but are you violating lots of different liberties with that? And
right.
so that gets a little iffy if we're donating, if we're doing financial foreign policy with that. Um, so I know it's not a straight answer. It's not
No, no,
perfect,
no.
but
But I respect that it's a real answer, and
Mhm.
I mean, I'm not getting equivocation from you. I'm getting this is a legitimately more complicated, question than just yes or no. And I feel I'm actually grateful that you're calling me out on it because it is a bit of a trick question.
Yeah.
And a lot of people that I've asked that of, they've said, no, I'm going to parse it out, because these are different conversations and different circumstances. So you pass a test. Good job. Okay, so let me move on to something, something in a different track. What are your thoughts on AI as it relates to the workforce? And then separately, we can kind of table the second part of this as it relates to resource use like water and electricity.
Yeah, great question. So, I mean, it's been pretty wild last few years watching AI, XAI, ChatGPT, all these ones start really, I don't want to say blossoming, but really just it feels like coming out of nowhere.
Right. Yeah.
Um, as far as workforce goes, there will be some displacement. We're already seeing it, and so if the companies aren't going to retrain, then it's going to have to be up to the government if that's what's needed. And that can look, of course, in vocational workplace, community colleges,
Right.
universities. Um, but we saw some. I don't even know how similar it was, but with the rise of the internet in the '90s, and so adjusting and moving people around. I always like to tell my students, a lot of times jobs necessarily, yes, they're gone, but they're created somewhere else. Uh,
Right. Yeah.
so that's we've not reached yet a point of technology that can hopefully maybe never, but develop itself, and all of a sudden we're superfluous.
Sure.
Uh,
Yeah.
so it's taking people and putting them into those areas that we can see. Granted, I don't mean like we're coming in and forcing you to go to work somewhere
No,
else.
no, no,
Like
no, no.
that's, but
But you think. But I'm sorry if to
no,
interrupt.
go for it.
But if I'm interpreting it correctly, you think that there is some responsibility of the government to help prepare its citizenry for those vocations that will, provide for them and their household.
Correct. And even if it's just government using more workplace programs, so
Right.
letting communities decide what those jobs are, letting states decide, but having resources available so that folks aren't just all of a sudden one day out of a job because of AI adjusting their
Right.
accounting position, or for example, there needs to be some sort of fallback so that they are still productive. And I know that sounds very monetary and making somebody into a number,
No,
but
no,
a
no.
productive
Yeah.
a productive society is important. Um,
Yeah.
and I mean, people also know AI is can be a very interesting tool. We are all of a year later starting to see a lot of those positions come back though as we start hitting the limits of what a company can do with its people and replacing them with AI. So
Right.
we're moving the pendulum back just a bit, though it won't probably ever leave, just like the internet in the '90s.
I mean, Pandora's box is, oh, you can't put the genie back in the box. However you want to say it, it's
Right.
here with us now, and so to some degree regulating it, certainly not allowing it to just run rampant. I think that would be like a reasonable, let's say that's entirely bipartisan take on on the idea.
There
But
has to be, yeah,
right.
it's a very powerful tool, right? And we're already seeing, I mean, some crazy stuff when it comes to, I mean, yeah, you can go, there's a ton of stuff that folks are doing that is could be more or less illegal that, yeah, we will have to
Yeah.
have safeguards. Just again, like in the
Yeah.
'90s when we were developing this, okay, we got to have some guardrails here because it could, it could really destroy things,
Yeah,
frankly. So,
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the second part of that
Hmm.
is its impact on how much water and energy usage, um, AI in particular uses because it is so much more, it creates so much more heat energy in the way that it processes data. What is your approach to allowing those kinds of operations access to organs, water, and electricity?
Yes, that's a very good, very good question. It is really important that we safeguard those things because the other thing to think about real quick is just that, just like the internet in let's say '87 was not essential yet. It wasn't. We could have. I mean, we somebody somewhere could have turned it off, and that's it. Um, it's the same with AI now. So it is really important to jump on it right now, while it's still in its infancy, to make sure that it grows accordingly how we would like it. And
Right,
that, it, of course, speaks to resource management. So, the DAOs, that's kind of maybe the big one in the news, but the Port of Morrow, same thing, Boardman
right.
area.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, we have got to make sure that we are watching this from a consumer protection standpoint. This is
Right.
about safeguarding society as a whole. The idea of the social contract, and that's what government has to do.
Yeah,
Uh,
right,
and so, if Google is willing, for example, in the DAOs, is if Google is willing to pay for their fair share of usage. They don't get a reduced rate. Okay.
right,
If Google is willing to invest in, whatever recirculation technology for the cooling of it. I'm
right,
not an engineer, but I know they have to do a lot of heat loss
right.
or a lot
Yeah.
of
No, no, no,
water
you're right.
loss.
Chat GPT, 39 million gallons of water per day, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah,
So how are we recycling that? Can they invest in areas that offset it? Maybe it's
right.
not possible, but can we offset it using something else that we know works?
Yeah,
It sounds weird, but how about desalination? I mean, like
sure.
on the coast. So
I
there's
mean,
ways that they can help us.
right. If they're that desperate to do it and to do it here, then I totally agree with you. The onus is on them to solve some of these problems, not to externalize them onto the community that they're frankly imposing themselves on. Um,
Exactly. And
yeah,
same with electricity. So, I mean,
right,
electrical usage, right? Um, we have, we have two main power sources in Eastern Oregon. It's wind and solar. Uh, to have Google or Amazon or any of them to bring their own energy, right? Like, let's
right.
get some solar fields that it's just for them. If they
Yeah,
finance it, go for it.
right.
Uh, but I don't want our rates to go up just because Google's doing a bunch of AI that helps us with design.
Right, or
Like
deep fake celebrity videos, or
yeah.
whatever. But some good things too. But let's be honest. I mean, a lot of the push for AI is around the branding of AI. It's about getting more investors excited
Hmm.
about AI. I mean, they put AI on things that don't have like AI the way you think they do. They've got little computers in them. That's it. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm sorry, I digress.
Yeah,
Um,
good.
uh, so I'm totally on board with that, and I think that will take us into the next question I have, which is, what are your thoughts on closing off public lands for potentially hazardous resource extraction? My passions are the gold cyanidation mine in Vale, and then there's the potential lithium extraction from down in the Owyhee Canyon lands. But you may have an example that speaks more to you.
Um, no, those are great examples because the Vale one was just approved, I believe, a couple of months ago
Fast
by
tracked, fast tracked.
Fast Tracked. Yeah. Um, so it's it's hard. I mean, obviously, if there was a simple answer, it'd be a simple answer.
Right,
Um, our world requires resources. We know that. We know the computer I'm using right now requires lots of minerals and rare earth elements and minerals.
right, yeah,
Um, we see, we know from the past that mineral extraction can be terrible for the environment. We just know that. We have the evidence. We see it. It's on film. Like it's right there. We
yeah,
can see it in modern day too. A lot of the cobalt mines over in places like Angola or Democratic Republic of the Congo in Africa are horrendous. I mean,
yeah,
to say the
yeah,
least. Talking about human rights and whatnot. Um, so there's that side. We also hear a lot about the national security side. We know that China has essentially a stranglehold on rare earth minerals.
Right.
Um, so moving some of that production back here seems to be beneficial, provided we do it in such a way that is safeguards as much of the environment as we can. I followed some of the Vale uh, gold mining cyanidization using cyanide to separate the ore. Um, I know it was fast tracked. I don't think fast tracking something like that is generally a good idea. The gold is not going anywhere.
Sure.
Um, so that being said, like, why did we need to fast track it? The gold's not going anywhere. Gold prices are only going up, so that company is going
Right.
to want to stay in this process.
Right.
Um, the lithium extraction, whether it's in the Hawaii Canyonlands or, and maybe we're also referencing the one, there's one further south on the
Yeah, yeah,
Nevada
yeah,
border,
you're
right?
right. Yeah, yeah.
Um,
It's down by McDermott, Nevada, I
yeah,
believe. Yeah.
yeah. So again, I know there was a lot of a lot of issues with the Native American groups in that area saying this
Yeah.
is our sacred land. Um, so it's not that we should stop production. It's not that we need to close it off entirely. We just have to do it in a diligent way,
Yeah.
following the process, following essentially the science, if that's what's needed, and making sure everybody's taken and accounted for. I realize some people will never be accepted.
Right.
That's fine. And some people will always want it, regardless of who's against. Um, so it is kind of that weighing of balance and judgment. Um, my issue would be more of the fast track part. So
Right.
it like I know we want to get the company in there, we want to get the resource out, but we need to fast track it? I would say
Right.
with gold, probably not. It's rare, but it's not as rare as some of the other
Right.
things.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
um, and yeah, there was a gold mining up in a lot in Alaska, but there was one Pebble. It was I believe it was like the Pebble mine, and it was going to really potentially damage a lot of salmon runs, and so that has been shut down. Like the
Right.
process apparently worked. There is some still there, of course, uh, but it is that idea of resource management in a sustainable way, resource
Right.
management in a way that protects as much as possible. Again, do we need those minerals? Yes. Um, should we fast track a process just to get it out of the ground? No.
Awesome. Yeah, I totally agree. All right. So let's get to, maybe yours and my favorite question. I'm kidding. What are your thoughts on Representative Betts? You did get into that a little bit earlier, but maybe there are some examples of things that he's done as our representative, or maybe not.
Sure. Um, so, you know what? Cut me off if we need to cut me off.
Right. How
So
much time we got? Yeah.
right. Yeah. So, a couple of things, and this kind of also goes back to the idea of like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Never done this before, so
Right.
running that is as a candidate, really. It's one of it is a lot of the hypocrisy. Okay, so on the one hand, he tells us we have 38 trillion in debt. We need to stop spending as much, be fiscally responsive. I agree with that statement. I think a lot of folks actually would. That's a lot of
Yep.
debt. We should like see what we can do. Then he turns around and at the inauguration last year, he spends the most in all of the 500 and roughly 37 members, voting and non-voting, to go back east with his friends and high-priced hotels
Something
and
like
food
17 grand.
is a lot.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So and it wasn't even like, oh, he barely was the most. He was the most by a lot.
Right.
And that is for somebody, he has an apartment there. He lives there. So why are you spending it on that? That's outrageous.
Yeah.
Um, you know, he also
Agree.
used to be, maybe still does. It's hard to tell. He doesn't ever actually post out much about his ideas or his opinions, which is another
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
Again, I'm happy to do that. If people disagree, awesome. Primary me, get me out. I don't care. I'm gonna do what I believe.
You're going to be
Um,
responsive to that, though.
yes.
You're not just going to like
Oh,
toe the party line, and you will have something to say about the decisions you make. you know,
Exactly.
and
And
that's
that's
something that he doesn't. I'm sorry.
no, no, you're good. That you're right. That's something he doesn't do. And that was another part of the hypocrisy. He goes, okay, we got to be fiscally responsive, 38 trillion in debt. Every institute, every think tank, okay, from progressive think tanks to conservative to independent, Cato Institute, American Enterprise, all these government institutes said, well, the one big beautiful bill is really going to raise the debt by about 3 to 4 to 5 trillion, depending on how you count it.
Yeah,
That's a
right,
lot of debt going up. He votes yes for it and he supports it and he says that and he's happy.
right, yeah,
I don't want him to come tell me to be fiscally responsible and him to go do that.
right,
That
yeah,
he could have taken a line in the sand and said, I love everything else but this raising of the debt. I'm going to vote against it.
right,
But he didn't, of course, like most of the other Republicans. So that type of hypocrisy blows me away. And I know
yeah,
why. I mean, I can kind of understand why from a political standpoint. I get it. But also from a moral and a backbone standpoint, I don't. And I don't like that. And that's not what the people around here elected him to do.
yes, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. I mean, it is the height of hypocrisy, but then it also points to this tacit kind of obedience to, you know, I wouldn't even say MAGA because he doesn't come across as that hard
No.
line or zealous. It's just, there's a void where his voice should be, and it's filled up with the rest of his party. He doesn't have to speak, he doesn't have to do anything. He just needs to get lost in the crowd. And that to me is unacceptable. He's my representative. I don't want him lost in the crowd. He should look like the second district is sitting right there in Congress. Anyway,
Exactly. I had a somebody out here ask me, well, what is Cliff Bent's views on immigration? And I said, and I meant this seriously. I was like, is that
search me.
rhetorical? Because I have searched. I've searched. I've looked. I can't find anything. So I
Yeah,
would love to tell you, but I don't even know.
right.
And and he doesn't maybe need to have an idea on every single minuscule minutia topic, but something like that's not minuscule and minutia. That's a huge topic.
Yeah,
Any sort of statement would have been great.
right. Right. Anything. And,
Yeah,
I mean, again, we don't necessarily need every congressperson to be an elder statesperson, but they do need to take a stand, nuanced, soft or whatever it is. They just need to be able to stand up and let people know that they haven't lost, the ability to speak entirely. Yes, awesome. So let me get to the biggie, and let's spend some time here. Don't feel like you got to rush through it because we're doing great on time.
okay.
Um, how will your constituents know that you are effectively serving them?
Yeah, that is a great question. So when it goes back to being out amongst the people, there's a reason the founders made this a 2 year position and not a 6 year or 8 or
Yeah,
10.
right.
Well, I have to be here. So being in the community, that doesn't mean I need to be a celebrity and everybody knows who I am. But certainly going to each part of this district, sitting down with anybody, elected leaders, sure. Okay. But also, I say everyday people, that'd be me too right now. But
Sure.
and anybody, right? Like just come and talk to me. It sounds weird to say like having office hours, but having hours and
Right.
days in parts of the state where people can come and do that. Um, I would also think, and maybe this sounds too campaigning, and maybe I wouldn't do it, but can he send out a yearly flyer? I mean, he's got millions of dollars. He's got at least 1 million in his thing. Send out a yearly flyer to the folks of Congressional District 2.
Yeah.
There's 600,000 of us. We could have a yearly flyer about the things he's done. Um, and if we don't like
A
it, that's
list
fine.
of like
But
a report card,
yeah,
like I mean self-reporting, but I mean I like the idea. I like the notion of like here is me being accountable to you. Let me know if I miss something, you know.
exactly. The other one that came up recently were our community-based projects. So,
Right.
uh, and I haven't talked about it yet, but um, Folk might remember the idea of earmarks in bills back in the 2000s, the aughts. We had that crazy bridge to nowhere fiasco in Alaska. That was a big example of one. They got rid of those. And then in 2021, they brought them back as small, so small scale, less than a couple of million, community based projects that individual congressmen and women can submit no extra tax dollars. It's already what we spent, but it comes back to the district in about 5 to 10 small projects. They're really great. I think from what I've researched in Oregon, for sure, we've had stuff for like John Day and their sewage. We've got OIT, Oregon Institute of Technology, has a new dental van. There's just
Nice.
also a small apartment complex and enterprise, really cool stuff. The sad
Wow.
thing is, none of those in this district are done by Cliff Bentz. He doesn't participate in this program. It's you don't have to. It's essentially
But why
optional, but
wouldn't you?
it's our money coming back.
Right. Why wouldn't he?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So a lot of the projects in Congressional District 2 are put forth by Ron Wyden or Jeff Merkley. So they listen to us and then they go and do it, which is great. Um, but that's another thing. So I'd be doing that.
Yeah.
I would be doing that because
Yeah.
it sounds maybe a little competitive, but yes, our tax dollars go to other states, but like, heck, I want to bring as much back here as possible because it's
Right.
our money.
Yeah,
So let's do
yeah.
that for our stuff.
I mean, it is your job to advocate for us, and without, being completely cutthroat, you may have to advocate hard and sometimes elbow elbow in something. No, and I didn't know about that. I knew about earmarks, but I didn't know about this kind of smaller iteration. I mean, the fact that that he's not pursuing that when there are so many parts of our district that could use
Oh,
help with even just minor infrastructure things and
yeah,
stuff like that. Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely.
And before I said this, like, and posted it places, I want to make sure I was right. So I checked all 6 other reps. You can find there how to submit. Here's where you go. Make sure it meets
Right,
these qualifications. All he's got is about grants, which
right.
is good, but
Sure.
it's a totally different thing.
Yeah,
And doing a lot of Googling and looking at all sorts of tables and charts. A lot of Republicans participate. This is not just a Democrat thing,
right,
but he is one that does not, and I think it's because of the idea of fiscal responsibility. Um, but at the same time,
right,
this doesn't cost any extra. And frankly, we've discussed his hypocrisy on that topic. But
right, right. Well, I
but
describe it as fair weather fiscal
oh
conservatism,
yeah,
where it's a great thing for him to pay lip service to when they're cutting national park jobs and things like that, but it is something that he'd prefer we didn't openly discuss when, we're adding on so much to the debt, when the dollar's lost 10% of its value over the last 14 months.
yeah,
I guess we are something like 90,000 jobs. We've lost 90,000 jobs when we're supposed to gain 50. And
yep,
there's a number of things that are poking holes in the paradigm that he puts forth, the worldview that he wants people to believe that he's avidly defending on our behalf, you know. Uh,
exactly. And that would
so
go back.
yeah,
Sorry, that
please,
could
please,
just go
no,
back
no.
to that idea. If he had said, "I'm fiscally conservative, anything that raises any money, I'm going to vote against," and he did it, I might disagree.
Yeah.
Maybe I wouldn't, but like he doesn't. So.
Yeah, if he were the Bernie Sanders of cutting costs and, saving money, if he was like, thoughtful about it and explained things and had a consistent record of doing it, then he might have a leg to stand on, but he is
Right.
not that guy.
No.
So, is there anything that you would like to speak to that I didn't give you an opportunity to talk about?
Um, I think one of the couple of big sticking points I've heard from a lot of folks out here are tariffs. Um, Tariff policy is supposed to come from the House. We've known that because it's in the Constitution, and thankfully our Supreme Court said it is.
Yeah,
I can read it. It's right there, actually on my wall
right.
right here. But yeah, again, he has, and He knows those. He said in an interview back in April that, or March, that those tariffs will raise prices. He said it.
Yep.
And then he moved on to other things. But he said it. So he knows that it is impacting you and me and everybody in Congressional District 2 and our affordability on every item, all sorts of items, many items. Um, and another big one for us, particularly in Congressional District 2, are ranchers and farmers. And they're getting hit by like three different ways on tariffs. You know, their inputs cost more, getting fertilizer from Canada and
Right.
all sorts of other things that come in that cost more. Um, it because of the tariffs. Nations, of course, put tariffs on us because they're like, well, that's
Right.
not fair. We're going to do it. So now farmers and ranchers stuff is not going overseas because the other countries don't want to buy it. And they also have families. So they're also getting hit when they go to the grocery store.
I,
So
I believe Oregon's exports were down a total of 17% in entirely in 2025 compared to 2024. Just, I
yeah,
mean, a catastrophe,
it
for
is.
farmers
And
in particular.
he might call for a bailout. You know, he hasn't. He won't. But I mean, he might. But we're seeing some of that from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Farmers and ranchers don't want bailouts. They
Right.
want open markets.
Right.
This was a pillar of the Republican Party. Granted, some things have not worked. I completely agree. We've lost manufacturing jobs,
Right.
but tariffs aren't going to bring them back.
No.
And if they do, it's going to be very small. Country
Yeah. Right.
businesses want consistent policies that they will know will last years so that they can invest. Nobody's going to build $1 billion manufacturing plant in Pendleton if they're like, oh, well, this could change next week or this could change
Right.
next year.
Right.
It's not going to happen.
How can you invest if if things are so volatile, if things like tariffs can just at the whim of one person be slapped and then raised and then lowered? And I mean, you can't really have a functional local economy, let alone global economy that way.
No,
And so, yeah, I mean, I think I think you're absolutely right when we talk about the issues that are directly affecting, I mean, the people in agrarian work in this district, I mean, as far as I've been able to tell, this has just been awful. This is, I mean,
yeah.
anyway, so
And and that kind of goes to the idea of he's being silent in the House. This is
right.
supposed to be the House's power. He
Yeah,
could say, this is hurting my people. I'd like to vote against it if a bill comes up. He
yeah.
can introduce a bill. He can, it may not pass, but
Any
he could
old
try.
time, yeah. Or
Yeah.
he can just speak to it. I mean, that's the thing is like, I know he's not a grandstander or whatever, but if he has a moral compass, at some point he's going to have to like let us know about it,
Mhm.
and maybe it doesn't get his bill passed, but it's a speech on the floor or it's something,
Exactly.
it's some kind of participation, and the fact that he is so confident he can continue to do things this way, it just I guess it has driven me crazy to the point where my sole focus over the next few months is trying to help Oregon District 2 find an alternative that is really going to work for them. That is not just events 2.0, not just another, I mean, and not another ineffectual Democrat that's beholden to their party and not their own personal principles, not the things that we bind to as an electorate when we meet these people and we vote for them, you know. Um, so on that note, Peter, thank you so much. I so appreciate all of your time, but then also all of your insights, your your very smart answers to some of my tricky questions. I appreciate that. But then also just being willing to, reach out to a fire-breathing liberal to me, and willing to share, your viewpoints on things. Honestly, I'm really impressed with your takes on things, and I'm almost certain that we could, if we went long enough, find something to disagree on. But right now, I have very positive feelings about you and your campaign. I'd like to know more about it as it progresses. So please keep us informed. And what is your website so people can find you?
So, Facebook.com/Peter Larson for Congress is where you'll find my page. I'm on Instagram as well. I try to post there as regularly as possible as a full-time parent with also a job. So,
Sure. Yeah.
but I do update that a lot. And it was really great being here today. Thank you so much. And I'm sure we could find stuff to disagree on. I hope everybody does. Nobody should be in a
Yes.
bubble,
Right.
but we also have things that we do agree on, and I love that.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah.
Let's talk again soon, okay?